16, 2013. I will link below to this article that was posted late last night in Global Research. My creeping concern that the NSA leaker Edward Snowden is not who he purports to be. This is by NAOMI Wolf. Below, I will link to a lecture that NAOMI Wolf gives at a university. I really hope everybody listens to it. She wrote The End of America, The 10 Steps to Tyranny. That's not the subtitle, that's me speaking, but essentially it's comparing the steps that the Nazi Party and Hitler took in Germany and everything that happened after 9/11, 2001, and the steps that we're taking now. And she points out that we are absolutely, well, she points out in that book that we're becoming a tyranny, and now we are. It only looks different because of the technology that we have. Anyway, I'll read this and I'll link below to both. I hate to do this, but I feel obligated to share, as the story unfolds, my creeping concern that the NSA leaker is not who he purports to be, and that the motivations involved in the story may be more complex than they appear to be. This is in no way to detract from the great courage of Glenn Greenwald in reporting the story and the gutsiness of The Guardian in showcasing this kind of reporting, which is a service to America that U.S. media is not performing at all. It is just to raise some cautions as the story unfolds and to raise some questions about how it is unfolding based on my experience with high-level political messaging. Some of Snowden's emphasis seem to serve an intelligence police state objective rather than to challenge them. A. He is super organized for a whistleblower in terms of what candidates, the White House, the State Department, et al. Call message discipline. He insisted on publishing a PowerPoint in the newspapers that ran his initial revelations. I gather that he arranged for a talented filmmaker to shoot the Greenwald interview. These two steps, which are evidence of great media training, really PR 101, are virtually never done, to my great distress, by other whistleblowers or by progressive activists involved in breaking news or by real courageous people who are under stress and getting the word out. They are always done, though, by high-level political surrogates. B. In the Greenwald video interview, I was concerned about the way Snowden conveys his message. He is not struggling for words or thinking hard, as even bright, articulate whistleblowers under stress will do. Rather, he appears to be transmitting whole paragraphs smoothly without stumbling. To me, this reads as someone who has learned his talking points. Again, the way that political campaigns train surrogates to transmit talking points. C. He keeps saying things like, if you are a journalist and they think you are the transmission point of this information, they will certainly kill you. Or, I fully expect to be prosecuted under the Espionage Act. He also keeps stressing what he will lose: his $200,000 salary, his girlfriend, his house in Hawaii. These are the kinds of messages that the police state would like journalists to take away. A real whistleblower also does not put out potential legal penalties as options, and almost always by this point has a lawyer by his or her side who would prohibit him or her from saying, "Come get me," under the Espionage Act. Finally, in my experience, real whistleblowers are completely focused on their act of public service and trying to manage the jeopardy to themselves and their loved ones. They don't tend ever to call attention to their own self-sacrifice. That is why they are heroes, among other reasons. But a police state would like us all to think about everything we would lose by standing up against it. D. It is actually in the police state's interest to let everyone know that everything you write or say everywhere is being surveilled, and that awful things happen to people who challenge this. Which is why I am not surprised that now he is on UK's no-fly list. I assume the end of the story is that we will all have a lesson in terrible things that happen to whistleblowers. That could be because he is a real guy who gets in trouble, but it would be as useful to the police state if he is a fake guy who gets in, quote, trouble, unquote. E. In stories that intelligence services are advancing, I would call the prostitutes with the Secret Service such a story. There are great sexy or sex-related mediagenic visuals that keep being dropped in to keep media focused on the issue. That very pretty pole dancing Facebooking girlfriend who appeared for, well, no reason in the media coverage and who keeps leaking commentary so her picture can be recycled in the press. Really? She happens to pole dance? Dan Ellsberg's wife was and is very beautiful, and doubtless a good dancer, but somehow she took a statelier role as his news story unfolded. Snowden is in Hong Kong, which has close ties to the UK, which has done the US's bidding with other famous leakers such as Assange. So really, there are many other countries that he would be less likely to be handed over from. G. Media reports said he had vanished at one point to an undisclosed location or a safe house. Come on, there is no such thing. Unless you are with the one organization that can still get off the surveillance grid, because that org created it. H. I was at dinner last night to celebrate the brave and heroic Michael Ratner of the Center for Constitutional Rights. Several of Assange's also brave and talented legal team were there, and I remembered them from when I had met Assange. These attorneys are present at every moment when Assange meets the press. When I met with him off the record last fall in the Ecuadorian embassy, his counsel was present the whole time, listening and stepping in when necessary. Seeing these diligent, attentive free speech attorneys for another whistleblower reinforced my growing anxiety. Where is Snowden's lawyer as the world's media meet with him? A whistleblower talking to media has his or her counsel advising him or her at all times, if not actually being present at the interview, because anything he or she says can affect the legal danger the whistleblower may be in. It is very, very odd to me that a lawyer has not appeared, to my knowledge, to stand at Snowden's side and keep him from further jeopardy in interviews. Again, I hate to cast any skepticism on what seems to be a great story of a brave spy coming in from the cold in the service of American freedom, and I would never raise such questions in public if I had not been told by a very senior official in the intelligence world that indeed there are some news stories that they create and drive, even in America, where propagandizing Americans is now legal. But do consider that in Eastern Germany, for instance, it was the fear of a machine of surveillance that people believed watched them at all times, rather than the machine itself, that drove compliance and passivity. From the standpoint of the police state and its interests, why have a giant big brother apparatus spying on us at all times unless we know about it? All right. Well, I will have to say that my suspicions about the leaker Edward Snowden have been increasing as this story has also unfolded. As an attorney, I was highly suspicious that Edward Snowden gave that interview to Glenn Greenwald without an attorney sitting by his side. And if you see these whistleblowers, they have an attorney with them at all times, because every word they say has to be scrutinized, and an attorney will jump in and tell their client, okay, stop speaking, because anything can be used against you. I also, when I listened to the interview of Eric Snowden, I thought this guy is very smooth. I thought, is what he's saying studied? And I'm always hesitant to say, okay, I know this and I'm 100% sure. No. There are people who are just really very articulate. And I always have to take a step back and say, all right, I don't know this man. He could very well just be very, very smooth. But the piece that I did a video a couple of days ago on the Department of Homeland Security leakers, the Doug Hagman interview with Rosebud. The first one that I put up got a lot of views. But the second one, which was more detailed and longer, didn't get a lot of views, and I'm hoping that people will go back and listen to it, because the details of what was being disclosed by this whistleblower, who remains anonymous for good reason, spoke of the sanctioned leaks. The Department of Homeland Security has sanctioned leaks. They have leaks that are deliberate, either to divert our attention or to let us know and to let us be afraid. I thought it was very suspect that Eric Snowden was continually talking about what he lost. And it sounded self-serving to me. It sounded egotistical to me. And so it kind of grated on my nerves. Well, obviously it grated on NAOMI Wolf's nerves, because she's right. Real heroes are more concerned about their family and loved ones when they come out than what they themselves have lost. He doesn't seem too concerned about that girlfriend pole dancing. So anyway, I'm going to link below to a lecture that NAOMI Wolf gave at a college, and I apologize if I said this at the beginning. I can't remember. Please watch it. Please watch it. It's very important what she's saying about the steps towards tyranny. But unfortunately, she wrote that years ago, comparing the steps that the Nazi Party and Hitler took to the steps that Bush and Cheney were taking. And unfortunately now we are living a tyranny. It looks a little bit different because of the technology that we have, but we see this technology now going down. But I do think that a lot of this has to do with scaring people. Don't ever do anything to cross us, or you'll lose it all. And people won't be behind you, and the media is going to be reporting that you're a traitor, and the Attorney General is going to come out, and actually there's not even a charge against this guy. There's no charges filed. He came out, he's known, and no charges are filed? Are you kidding? The Attorney General just says we're doing an investigation, and he doesn't even mention Eric Snowden by name, the person who leaked, when we all know who it is. Something is up with this story. Thank you for watching. I'll read this and I'll link below to both. I hate to do this, but I feel obligated to share, as the story unfolds, my creeping concern that the NSA leaker is not who he purports to be, and that the motivations involved in the story may be more complex than they appear to be. This is in no way to detract from the great courage of Glenn Greenwald in reporting the story we're taking now. And she points out that we are absolutely, well, she points out in that book that we're becoming a tyranny, and now we are. It only looks different because of the technology that we have. Anyway, and the gutsiness of The Guardian in showcasing this kind of reporting, which is a service to America that U.S. media is not performing at all. It is just to raise some cautions as the story unfolds, and to raise some questions about it, about how it is unfolding based on my experience with high-level. 16, 2013, I will link below to this article that was posted late last night in Global Research. My creeping concern that the NSA leaker Edward Snowden is not who he purports to be. This is by NAOMI Wolf. Below, I will link to a lecture that NAOMI Wolf gives at a university. I really hope everybody listens to it. She wrote The End of America, The 10 Steps to Tyranny. That's not the subtitle, that's me speaking, but essentially it's comparing the steps that the Nazi Party and Hitler took in Germany and everything that happened after 9/11, 2001, and the steps that were